Amara's back hit the glass railing so hard the champagne flute slipped from her hand and shattered across the rooftop floor. For one frozen second, no one moved. Not the women in silk gowns. Not the men in tailored black suits. Not the waiters holding trays of untouched wine. Even the violinists at the far end of the rooftop stopped playing as Amara Whitfield's fingers tightened around the cold glass behind her, one hand flying protectively over her swollen belly. Victor Nwosu stood in front of her, breathing hard, his expensive tuxedo still perfect, his smile completely gone. "You think you can embarrass me?" he said under his breath. Amara's cheek burned from the slap. Her eyes watered, but she refused to let the tears fall. She had cried for this man before. She had begged before. She had apologized for things that were never her fault before. Not tonight. Not in Seoul. Not with her child inside her. She lifted her chin, even though her body trembled. "You embarrassed yourself the moment you touched me." Victor's eyes darkened. Around them, guests whispered in fear. Everyone knew something terrible had just happened, but no one knew what to do. This was not a street corner. This was the rooftop of the Mirae Crown Hotel, where Korea's richest families, foreign investors, politicians, celebrities, and old money heirs gathered to smile in public and destroy each other in private. Scandals did not happen here. They were buried here. Victor stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You still have that mouth." Amara swallowed. Her fingers pressed harder against her belly. "Stay away from me." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Stay away from you," he repeated. "After everything I did for you? After everything I made you? You ran across the world, married some Korean billionaire, and now you stand here acting like I'm a stranger." "You are worse than a stranger," she said. "You are a mistake I survived." The words hit him harder than she expected. His face twitched. His jaw locked. For a moment, the polished businessman disappeared, and the man she had escaped 18 months ago looked back at her with the same cold fury that used to fill their New York apartment. "You survived," he whispered. "You think this is survival? Standing here pregnant for a man you barely know? Letting him parade you in front of people who don't even respect you?" Amara's throat tightened, but she forced her voice not to shake. "You don't get to talk about respect." Victor leaned in, his cologne turning her stomach. "You belong to me in ways he will never understand." Amara's face hardened. "I never belonged to you." His hand shot out again. This time, she saw it coming. She moved back, but her heel caught on the broken stem of the champagne glass. Her body tilted. The glass railing behind her groaned as her weight slammed against it. A woman screamed. Amara felt the empty night behind her. 30 floors of air. City lights burning beneath her like 1,000 watching eyes. Her heart stopped. Then someone grabbed her wrist. Fast. Strong. Precise. A young man in a black suit appeared between her and the edge so quickly that several guests gasped. He pulled her forward with one hand and caught her waist with the other, turning his body to shield her from Victor. Amara stumbled into him, shaking. "Mrs. Min," he said quietly, his voice steady. "Are you hurt?" She could not answer immediately. Her breath came out broken. The young man looked no older than 24, maybe 25. His hair was neatly combed back, his expression calm, but his eyes were sharp enough to cut. Amara knew him. Kai Sunwoo, one of Jae-hwan's quiet shadows. Victor stared at him. "Who the hell are you?" Kai did not look at him. He kept his attention on Amara. "Can you stand?" Amara nodded, though her knees felt weak. "Yes," she whispered. "I can stand." Kai stepped aside just enough to let Clara rush to Amara's side. Clara Mensa grabbed her friend's hand with both of hers. "Oh my God, Amara," Clara whispered, her voice shaking. "Your face. Your belly. Are you okay? Talk to me." "I'm okay," Amara said, though she did not sound okay. "I'm okay." Victor scoffed loudly, trying to take back the room. "This is ridiculous." She tripped. Everyone saw her trip. "No," Clara snapped, turning on him. "Everyone saw you put your filthy hands on a pregnant woman." Victor's eyes flashed. "Stay out of this." Clara stepped forward. "Try me." A murmur moved through the rooftop. Someone had already pulled out a phone. Another guest was whispering to a security guard. Mrs. Han Sukja, Jae-hwan's aunt, stood at the entrance of the terrace, her face pale with controlled rage. But before anyone else could speak, the elevator doors opened. The sound was soft, almost ordinary, yet the entire rooftop changed. Conversations died instantly. Men who had looked confident only seconds ago lowered their eyes. One of the hotel executives stepped backward as if the air had suddenly become too heavy to breathe. Min Jae-hwan walked out. He wore a black suit with no tie, his dark hair brushed away from his face, his expression unreadable. He did not rush. He did not shout Amara's name. He did not push through the crowd. He walked with the kind of calm that made panic look childish. Two men followed behind him, but they stopped near the elevator. Jae-hwan continued alone. His eyes moved once over the shattered glass, once over Amara's red cheek, once over Victor's hand, still half-curled from violence. Then his gaze settled on Amara. Everything dangerous in his face softened. Amara. Her lips trembled at the sound of her name. Jae-hwan crossed the remaining distance and stopped in front of her. He did not touch her immediately. Even in that moment, even with rage burning silently through him, he waited for her permission. That almost broke her. "I'm okay," she said, though tears finally slipped down her face. He didn't. Jae-hwan's voice was low. "Did he touch your stomach?" "No," she whispered. "Kai caught me." Jae-hwan looked at Kai. Kai bowed his head once. She did not fall. For a moment, Jae-hwan closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the softness was gone. He turned to Victor. The silence became unbearable. Victor lifted his chin, forcing a smile that did not reach his eyes. "You must be Min," he said. "I was wondering when the famous husband would appear." Jae-hwan did not respond. Victor spread his hands. "This has clearly been misunderstood. Amara and I have history. Emotional history. She overreacted, your little bodyguard overreacted, and now everyone is acting like I attacked her." Jae-hwan watched him as if he were studying a small crack in a glass wall before deciding whether to let the whole building collapse. "You crossed an ocean," Jae-hwan said quietly, "entered my city, stood under my roof, and put your hands on my wife." Victor's smile stiffened. "Your roof," he said. "Last time I checked, this was a hotel." A few guests looked away. Jae-hwan took one slow step forward. Mirae Crown is financed through Hanmin Global's private hospitality fund. The security team reports to my office. The land beneath this hotel passed through my family before your first company learned how to forge an invoice. Victor's face changed. Only slightly. But Amara saw it. The first crack. Jae-hwan's voice remained calm. "So yes, Mr. Nwosu. My roof." Victor swallowed, then recovered with a laugh. "You've done your research." "No," Jae-hwan said. "Research is what careless men call information after it surprises them." Victor's jaw tightened. Jae-hwan glanced toward the crowd. "You came to Korea for the Meridian Crown residences. 3 towers. Luxury waterfront apartments. Foreign investors. Local permits. Quiet money through 4 shell companies and 1 offshore lender already under investigation in Singapore." Victor's eyes widened. The guests began whispering again, but this time the whispers were different. Sharper. Hungrier. Amara stared at Jae-hwan. She knew he had been watching Victor. She knew he had prepared something. But not this. Victor took a step back. "You need to be very careful." Jae-hwan almost smiled. "No," he said. "You needed to be careful. 6 weeks ago." Victor's phone began buzzing inside his jacket. Then another phone rang somewhere behind him. Then another. One of Victor's associates, a short man with silver-rimmed glasses, looked down at his screen and went pale. "Victor," he whispered. "The Busan account." "Not now," Victor snapped. The man's voice shook. "It's frozen." Victor turned on him. "What?" Jae-hwan continued as if Victor had not spoken. "Your Korean land partner withdrew at 9:12 p.m. Your logistics approval was suspended at 9:18. Your lead investor requested emergency arbitration at 9:23. Your construction loan was flagged at 9:31. Victor's phone buzzed again. Jae-hwan looked at it. "That should be your board." Victor's face had lost its color. "You think you can do this to me?" he said, but the confidence was draining from his voice. Jae-hwan stepped close enough that Victor had to look up slightly. "I did not do this to you," he said. "I arranged for your actions to meet consequences." Victor's hand curled into a fist. Kai moved. Not dramatically. Not aggressively. Just one shift of his body, and suddenly everyone understood that if Victor lifted his hand again, he would not get to lower it. Amara's breath caught. Jae-hwan did not even glance at Kai. His eyes stayed on Victor. "You touched my wife," he said. "You endangered my child. And you did it in front of witnesses, because your pride is louder than your survival instinct." Victor's nostrils flared. "This isn't over." Jae-hwan leaned closer. "It ended before you arrived." For the first time, Victor looked afraid. Not angry. Not insulted. Afraid. And that fear sent Amara back 18 months, to a different room, in a different city, where she had been the one standing barefoot on broken glass while Victor blocked the door. She remembered the rain hitting the windows of their New York apartment. She remembered the smell of expensive whiskey on his breath. She remembered the way he had smiled when she told him she had received an offer from Seoul. Seoul. Victor had said, laughing like she had told him a joke. "You?" Amara had stood near the kitchen island, holding the printed email in both hands. She had read it 10 times before he came home. A 6-month consulting contract with Dawn Culture Partners. International brand strategy. Luxury cultural events. It was the kind of opportunity she had prayed for when she was still young enough to believe hard work always opened the right doors. "I haven't accepted yet," she had said carefully, "but it's a serious offer." Victor had poured himself a drink without looking at her. "Of course you haven't accepted it." Her stomach tightened. "What does that mean?" He turned then, smiling with that smooth cruelty only she knew. "It means you're not stupid." Amara had folded the paper slowly. "Victor, you don't speak Korean. You barely understand Asian business culture. You think because some people praised your little branding proposal, you can run off to Seoul and become important." "It's a consulting role," she said. "Not running a country." He laughed. "Don't get defensive. I'm helping you see reality." "No," she said quietly. "You're belittling me." His smile disappeared. The room shifted. That was always how it happened. One moment he was charming. The next, the air became dangerous. "Be careful, Amara." She looked down at the paper in her hand. The old Amara would have apologized. The old Amara would have softened her tone. The old Amara would have said, "I didn't mean it like that." But something in her had been cracking for months, maybe years. "I am careful," she said. "That's why I haven't said yes yet. I knew you would react like this." Victor set his glass down. Too gently. "You knew I would react like what?" "Like my success is an insult to you." He stared at her. Then he smiled again. But this time, the smile was colder. "My God," he said. "Listen to you. A few foreigners send you an email and suddenly you're talking like one of those motivational women online." Amara's face burned. "I earned that offer." "You earned it because my name got you into rooms." "That's not true." His hand slammed against the counter so hard she flinched. "It is true," he shouted. Silence crashed between them. Amara's heart pounded. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. Victor pointed at her. "Before me, nobody knew you. Nobody invited you anywhere. Nobody cared about your ideas. I polished you. I introduced you. I made people look at you twice." Amara's voice broke. "You don't get to take credit for my life." "Your life?" he said. "You mean the apartment I pay for? The events I take you to? The clients who answer your emails because they know you're with me?" She blinked fast, refusing to cry. "I work. You decorate." The words hit her like a slap. Victor stepped closer. "Smile for a few months, realize nobody actually cares, and come crawling back. But by then, Amara, I may not be here." She hated that a part of her still felt fear at the thought. Not love. Fear. "And let me tell you what will happen if you go to Seoul. You'll get there. Fear of being alone. Fear of failing. Fear that maybe he was right. Fear that she had become so used to his voice telling her what she was worth that she no longer knew how to measure herself without it. Victor saw the hesitation. He always saw it. His voice softened. That was worse. Baby, he said, reaching for her face. I'm not your enemy. She stood still as his fingers brushed her cheek. I'm the only one honest enough to tell you the truth. Amara looked at him, really looked, at the handsome face, the expensive watch, the confident posture, the eyes that never saw her as a person, only as something he had trained, shaped, and owned. And for the first time, his softness did not confuse her. It disgusted her. That night, after Victor fell asleep, Amara sat on the bathroom floor with her laptop balanced on her knees. Her hands shook as she opened the offer email. She read the final line again. We would be honored to have you join us in Seoul. Amara covered her mouth with her hand. Not because she was crying, because she was afraid Victor would hear her breathing. Then she clicked accept. The next 3 days became the most careful days of her life. She smiled when Victor entered the room. She answered softly when he spoke. She cooked dinner because arguing would make him suspicious. She let him believe he had won. But while he held meetings, she moved like a woman defusing a bomb. She copied her documents. She transferred her private savings into an account he did not know existed. She found the tracking app he had installed on her phone and left the phone in a taxi headed toward Queens. She packed only what mattered: passport, certificates, laptop, hard drive, 3 dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, her mother's necklace, and a flash drive full of recordings she had once been too ashamed to name as evidence. On the morning she left, Victor kissed her forehead before going to a breakfast meeting. Don't sulk all day, he said. We'll talk about your little Korea fantasy tonight. Amara smiled. Okay. The moment the door closed, she locked it. Then she stood in the center of the apartment for 10 seconds, listening to the silence. Her whole body wanted to collapse. Instead, she picked up her suitcase. At the airport, her phone buzzed again and again with messages from Victor. Where are you? Stop playing with me. Amara, answer me now. You think I won't find you? She did not respond. When the plane lifted off, she finally looked out the window and saw New York shrinking beneath her. Her chest hurt so badly, she thought freedom might kill her before fear did. But then the flight attendant passed by and asked if she needed anything. Amara wiped her face and whispered, "Water, please." It was the first thing she had asked for as a free woman. 18 months later, standing on a rooftop in Seoul with Victor trembling before her husband, Amara remembered that woman on the plane. Terrified, heartbroken, alive. Jae-hwan turned back to her. His voice softened again. What do you want, Amara? The question cut through everything. The crowd, the shame, the pain in her cheek, Victor's fury. For years, men had told her what she should want. Safety, silence, gratitude, forgiveness, peace at any cost. Now the most powerful man on that rooftop was asking her to choose. Amara looked at Victor. His eyes pleaded now, but not with remorse. Only panic. She placed both hands over her belly. Then she said, clearly enough for everyone to hear, I want him to face everything he did. The right way. Jae-hwan held her gaze. Then he nodded once. The right way, he said. Victor's mouth opened. But before he could speak, the elevator doors opened again, and Daniel Park stepped onto the rooftop carrying a black leather folder. And Amara knew the night was only beginning. Daniel Park did not rush when he stepped out of the elevator. That was the first thing Victor noticed. The lawyer moved like a man who had never been surprised in his life. His black leather folder was tucked under one arm, his glasses sat low on his nose, and his expression carried the calm politeness of someone arriving at a meeting where the other party had already lost. Victor stared at him, then looked back at Jae-hwan. What is this? He demanded. Jae-hwan did not answer immediately. He turned to Amara first. His eyes went to her cheek again, where Victor's hand had left a red mark. His jaw tightened once, almost invisibly. You do not have to stay for this, he said softly. Amara's fingers curled around Clara's hand. For a second, the old fear inside her whispered for her to leave. To hide. To let powerful men handle powerful men. To go somewhere quiet and cry until her breathing returned to normal. But the woman who had boarded that flight to Seoul had not crossed an ocean just to keep running.
No, she said.
I want to hear every word. Jae-hwan nodded. Victor scoffed. This is theater. Amara looked at him. No, Victor. This is what happens when the woman you thought was weak survives long enough to become evidence. His eyes snapped to hers. For the first time that night, something deeper than fear crossed his face. Suspicion. Daniel reached them and gave Jae-hwan a brief bow before turning to Victor. Mr. Nwosu, he said, his English smooth and precise. My name is Daniel Park. I represent Hanmin Global Group, several private investment partners, and, as of tonight, Mrs. Amara Whitfield Min in matters relating to civil and criminal claims connected to your activities in Korea and abroad. Victor laughed, but it came out thin. You represent everybody, then? Daniel opened the folder. Not everybody. Only the people you should have been afraid of. A ripple moved through the guests. Victor's associate with the silver-rimmed glasses tried to step away, but two hotel security men quietly moved toward the exit. They did not touch him. They did not need to. He stopped immediately. Victor noticed and pointed at them. You can't hold my people here. Jae-hwan's voice cut through the air. No one is being held. They are free to leave after they provide identification to the authorities downstairs. Authorities. Victor repeated. Daniel slid one paper out of the folder. At 9:45 p.m., a formal complaint was submitted to the Seoul Metropolitan Police Financial Crimes Division. At 9:52, supporting documentation was delivered to the Financial Supervisory Service. At 10:03, your primary lender received notification of an ongoing investigation into irregular cross-border transfers tied to Mirae Crown Holdings. Victor's lips parted. You're bluffing. Daniel glanced at his watch. At 10:06, your lender froze the account. Victor's phone rang again. He did not answer it. Amara watched him, and something inside her shook, not with fear this time, but with the violent recognition of reversal. She had seen Victor stand over people before. She had seen him smile while ruining them, watched him destroy reputations with one phone call, watched him make grown men apologize for asking fair questions. Now his own phone had become a weapon ringing in his pocket. You planned this, Victor said to Jae-hwan. I prepared for it, Jae-hwan replied. That's the same thing. No, Jae-hwan said. Planning is what men like you do when you intend harm. Preparation is what people do when they expect it from men like you. Victor's face twisted. You don't know me. Amara gave a small, bitter laugh. Everyone turned to her. She stepped away from Clara gently. Clara tried to hold her back. Amara, Clara whispered. I'm okay. She walked forward, slowly, one hand resting on her belly. Kai's eyes followed every movement. Jae-hwan shifted as if every instinct in him wanted to stand between her and Victor, but he did not move. He let her choose. Amara stopped beside Daniel. You're right, she told Victor. He doesn't know you the way I do. Victor swallowed. Don't do this. Those 3 words almost made her smile. Not because they were funny, because she had said them before. She had said them in New York when Victor threatened to send private messages to her clients. She had said them when he grabbed her suitcase. She had said them when he stood in front of the door and asked where she thought she was going. She had said them when he called her ungrateful, unstable, dramatic, impossible to love. Don't do this. Back then, he had done it anyway. So Amara looked at him and said, why not? Victor's face hardened. Because you know what this becomes.
No, she said.
I know what it was. I know what you were. I know what I allowed myself to survive, because I thought silence would keep me safe. Victor glanced around to the guests. He was calculating again, searching for a version of himself he could present to the room. The misunderstood ex, the emotional man, the victim of a jealous husband, the foreign investor being bullied by local power. His voice softened. Amara, listen to me. We had problems. Every couple has problems. But you and I both know I never meant to hurt you. She stared at him. The rooftop seemed to disappear. For one second, they were back in New York. The apartment was dim. Rain slid down the windows. Victor stood in front of the bedroom door, while Amara held her suitcase handle with both hands. "Move," she had said. His face had been calm then too. "Put the suitcase down." "I'm leaving." "No, you're having an episode." "I am not having an episode." "You're emotional. You're confused. You're taking one argument and turning it into a whole drama because you want attention." She had tried to pull the suitcase around him. He kicked it so hard it fell sideways. Her clothes spilled across the floor. Amara froze. Victor looked down at the clothes, then back at her. "Look what you made me do." That sentence had lived in her bones for months. "Look what you made me do." As if his cruelty needed her permission. As if every wound he gave her was something she had handed him first. Now, on the rooftop, Victor was trying to do it again. Trying to shrink the room until only his version of the story remained. But Amara was not in that apartment anymore. "No," she said, her voice cutting clean through his performance. "You meant to hurt me. You just never thought I would say it where people could hear." Victor's eyes darkened. Daniel removed another document. "Mrs. Min has provided recordings, written threats, financial records, and correspondence indicating a long-standing pattern of coercion, intimidation, reputational blackmail, and possible use of personal associates to conceal unlawful transfers connected to Mr. Nwosu's real estate projects." Victor's associate muttered a curse. Victor snapped toward him. "Shut up." Jae-hwan looked at the associate. The man immediately lowered his head. Daniel continued. "In addition, several former employees of Nwosu Development International have agreed to testify regarding falsified investor reports and the use of romantic partners' accounts as temporary holding channels." Victor's face went still. That one reached him. Amara saw it. She remembered the documents. The papers he asked her to sign when she was tired. The temporary account access. The emails he told her not to read too closely. At the time, she had thought she was being supportive. Later, after she escaped, she realized support had been another word he used for compliance. She had kept copies because fear had taught her to preserve proof. For months, she had been ashamed of the files. Ashamed she had stayed. Ashamed she had signed anything. Ashamed she had loved a man who saw her trust as a tool. But shame had not deleted them. And tonight, shame was no longer driving. Victor pointed at her, his voice low and deadly. "You kept those." Jae-hwan stepped forward. Kai moved faster. In less than a heartbeat, Kai stood between Victor and Amara again. "Lower your hand," Kai said. Victor looked at him with pure hatred. "Boy, if you don't." Kai's voice remained calm. "Lower your hand." Victor did not lower it. Kai tilted his head slightly. Then Victor's wrist was in Kai's grip. No one saw exactly how it happened. One moment Victor was pointing. The next, his arm was twisted downward just enough to make him wince. Kai did not break anything. He did not make a show. He only taught the room how quickly violence could be returned to its owner. Victor sucked in a breath. Jae-hwan's voice was quiet. "Kai." Kai released him immediately and stepped back. Victor cradled his wrist, humiliated. Amara's heart was pounding, but she could not look away. Once, Victor's anger had filled entire rooms. Tonight, it could not even survive one young man's hand. Each person, anyone who witnessed the assault, may provide statements downstairs. The executive bowed quickly. "Yes, Chairman." Victor barked. "You can't control everyone." Jae-hwan's eyes returned to him. Jae-hwan turned to the hotel executive standing near the entrance. "Clear the terrace of guests who are not directly involved. No recordings leave this roof until legal counsel has spoken. I do not need to control everyone. Only the exits you thought were open." Victor's mouth closed. Mrs. Han stepped toward Amara, her silk shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. She touched Amara's arm with surprising gentleness. "My child," she said softly. "Come sit." "I'm fine," Amara said. Mrs. Han's eyes narrowed. That was not a question. Despite everything, Clara almost laughed through her tears. Amara allowed them to guide her to a lounge chair near the heated lamps. Her legs were shaking harder than she wanted anyone to see. Clara knelt in front of her and touched her knees. "Breathe," Clara whispered.
In. Out.
Stay with me. Amara inhaled. The baby moved. She gasped softly and pressed both hands to her belly. Jae-hwan turned instantly. Amara? She moved, Amara said, tears rushing again before she could stop them. The baby moved. Something broke across Jae-hwan's face. Not fear exactly. Something deeper. The kind of terror only love could create. He crossed to her and knelt, right there on the rooftop floor, uncaring of the guests still watching from a distance. May I? He asked. Amara nodded. He placed one hand gently over hers. For a moment, the world narrowed to the warmth beneath their palms. The child moved again. Jae-hwan closed his eyes. Amara saw the rage in him fighting with relief. Saw the husband, the father, the dangerous man, the wounded boy he never spoke about, all trying to exist inside one controlled breath. I am sorry, he whispered. She shook her head. You didn't touch me. I should have told you everything earlier. That's not what matters right now. It matters to me. Amara looked at him. The noise around them faded. You asked me what I wanted, she said. That matters more. His eyes opened. She reached for his face, brushing her thumb along his cheek. Do not take that back from me. I won't. Not tonight. Not ever. His voice dropped. Never. Behind them, Victor watched with a face full of hatred. Not regret. Not shame. Hatred. Amara could feel it like heat against her back. Clara saw it too. She stood slowly and turned toward him. You know what is sick about you? Clara said. You're not even sorry she almost fell. You're only angry that she has someone kneeling for her now. Victor glared. You know nothing about me. I know enough. Do you? Victor said, his mouth curling. Did she tell you everything? Did Saint Amara tell you how much she enjoyed the life I gave her? The trips? The jewelry? The introductions? Did she tell you how she smiled beside me when money was good? Amara stiffened. There it was. The old knife. If she had ever enjoyed anything, then she had no right to call the rest abuse. If she had ever smiled, ever accepted a gift, ever loved him, then he would use that as proof that her pain was a lie. Jae-hwan started to rise. Amara touched his shoulder. No, she said quietly. Let me. She stood again. This time her legs were steadier. She faced Victor, and every person still close enough to hear turned silent. Yes, Amara said. I smiled. Victor blinked, caught off guard. She continued, voice trembling but clear. I smiled in restaurants after crying in bathrooms. I wore jewelry after being called worthless. I stood beside you at events because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. I laughed when you mocked me because I had learned that fighting back cost more than pretending. Victor's expression flickered. Amara stepped closer, stopping just behind Kai. So yes, Victor, I smiled. And if any woman listening to this has ever smiled beside someone who is destroying her in private, I hope she knows that smile does not make her a liar. It means she was surviving. Clara covered her mouth. Mrs. Han looked away, blinking hard. Even Daniel lowered his eyes for a moment, as if the legal documents in his hands suddenly seemed too small for what had just been spoken. Victor's face reddened. You always knew how to perform, he said. Amara nodded. Yes, she said. I learned from you. That landed. Victor took one sharp step forward. Jae-hwan rose. This time, he did not need to speak. His body moved between Victor and Amara with such cold finality that Victor stopped by instinct. Jae-hwan's voice was soft. You'll speak to my wife with respect, or you will say nothing until police arrive. Victor laughed bitterly. Your wife, he said. You keep saying that like she wasn't mine first. The temperature of the rooftop seemed to drop. Jae-hwan went very still. Kai's gaze sharpened. Clara whispered, Oh, he's stupid. Amara's stomach tightened. Victor had no idea what line he had just crossed. Jae-hwan stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. People are not territory. Victor smirked, desperate to regain power. That sounds noble coming from a man who owns half the city. I own companies. Land. Ships. Debt. Jae-hwan's eyes hardened. Never a woman. Victor's smirk faltered. Jae-hwan leaned in. That is why she chose me. Victor looked at Amara. His face twisted with something almost childish. You chose him because you were scared. Amara's answer came instantly.
No.
I left you because I was scared. I chose him when I stopped being scared. For the first time, Victor had no reply. And if you've watched this far, don't go anywhere because what happened next was the part Victor never saw coming. He thought Jae-hwan was the danger. He thought money was the weapon. He thought Amara was standing there protected by another man's power. But he had forgotten something. A woman who escapes quietly does not always leave empty-handed. Sometimes, she carries the key to your destruction in a flash drive small enough to hide beneath her passport. Daniel Park opened the folder again and took out a sealed evidence bag. Inside it was Amara's silver flash drive. Victor saw it. His entire body went rigid. Amara looked at him and whispered, "You remember this, don't you?" Victor's lips moved, but no sound came out. She nodded slowly. "You should. You told me no one would ever believe me." The elevator bell sounded once more. This time, 2 uniformed officers stepped onto the rooftop. Daniel turned toward them and bowed politely. Victor staggered back half a step. And Amara, standing beside the husband who had asked what she wanted instead of deciding for her, finally allowed herself to breathe. But as the officers approached, Victor reached into his jacket. Kai shouted first. "Hand!" Everything exploded at once. Kai moved before Victor's fingers fully disappeared inside his jacket. 1 second Victor was reaching. The next, his back slammed against the glass wall beside the elevator. Kai's forearm pressed across his chest and Victor's wrist pinned high above his shoulder. A woman screamed. One of the officers reached for his weapon. Jae-hwan stepped in front of Amara so quickly she barely saw him move. "Don't shoot," Jae-hwan said, his voice calm but sharp. Victor groaned, his face twisted in pain. "It's my phone," he hissed. "It's just my phone." Kai did not release him. "Then you should have said that before reaching." Victor's hand opened. A black phone slipped from his fingers and hit the floor. The screen was lit with an incoming call. Daniel Park bent, picked it up with a handkerchief, and glanced at the name. "Board chairman," he said. Victor squeezed his eyes shut. The humiliation was worse than pain. Everyone on that rooftop had now seen him panic. They had seen him slap a pregnant woman. They had seen him reach into his jacket when police arrived. They had seen a younger man pin him like he weighed nothing. The great Victor Nwosu, the man who once entered rooms like a king, had become a warning. Kai leaned closer to him. "If you move again without permission," he said quietly, "I will not be as gentle." Victor's eyes burned with hate. "You think this makes you powerful?" Kai's expression did not change. "No. It makes you predictable." The officer stepped forward. "Release him." Kai looked at Jae-hwan. Jae-hwan gave one small nod. Kai let Victor go. Victor straightened his jacket with shaking hands, trying to gather the pieces of his dignity, but there was nothing left to gather. His cheek twitched. His wrist was red. His phone was in Daniel's hand. His empire was ringing for him from a screen he could not touch. One officer approached him. "Mr. Victor Nwosu?" Victor's mouth tightened. "You know who I am." The officer's face remained blank. "Yes. That is why we are here." That single sentence made the room colder. Amara sat back down because her knees had begun to tremble again. Clara stayed beside her. Mrs. Han stood behind them like a wall dressed in silk. Jae-hwan remained between Amara and Victor, but his attention kept returning to her. Not obviously. Not in a way that weakened him before the room. But enough for Amara to see that every breath he took was divided between destroying Victor and making sure she was still breathing. Victor noticed too. And because he was Victor, he tried to use it. "Amara," he said, suddenly soft. "Look at me." Clara snapped. "Don't answer him." But Amara lifted her eyes anyway. Victor took a breath, his face rearranging itself into something wounded and familiar. "You know how this looks," he said. "You know what they're doing. They're turning one emotional moment into a criminal case because your husband wants to prove something." Amara said nothing. He continued, voice low, intimate, poisonous. "You know me. You know I get angry, but you also know I loved you. I made mistakes. You made mistakes too. Are you really going to let strangers drag our private life into police files? There it was again. Private life. That was what men like Victor called abuse when the walls finally developed ears. Amara stared at him. Then she stood. Jae-hwan turned. Amara. She touched his arm. I need to say this. His eyes searched hers. Then he stepped aside. Not far. Never far. But enough. Amara faced Victor fully. Our private life ended the day you threatened to destroy me for leaving. Victor's eyes flickered. You misunderstood what I said. No, Amara replied. For the first time, I understood exactly what you said. You told me that without you, I would disappear. You told me every room I entered belonged to you. You told me if I ever made you look weak, I would regret it. Victor's nostrils flared. Couples say things. Abusers say things, she corrected. Then they wait for you to call it love. The words hung in the air. One of the women near the doorway began to cry silently. Another lowered her head. Even some of the men looked uncomfortable, not because they pitied Amara, but because truth spoken publicly has a way of searching everyone in the room. Victor's eyes narrowed. You've been rehearsing this. Amara gave a sad smile.
No.
I've been healing. Daniel stepped forward with the evidence bag. Mrs. Min, are you willing to formally submit this device and provide a statement? Amara looked at the flash drive. For months, it had lived inside locked drawers, hidden pouches, and finally, the safe in Jae-hwan's study. It had felt like a snake she refused to touch. Proof, yes, but also memory. A collection of nights she wanted to bury and sentences she wished she had never heard. But now, looking at Victor's face, she realized the flash drive was not the past. It was a door. And tonight, she was closing it. Yes, she said. I am. Victor's control snapped. You ungrateful. Jae-hwan's head turned. Victor stopped. Just that. No shout.
No threat.
Only Jae-hwan's eyes. Victor swallowed the rest of the word. One of the officers stepped closer. Mr. Nwosu, you'll come with us to answer questions regarding the assault witnessed here tonight and the financial complaint filed against your company. I'm not going anywhere without my attorney. Daniel smiled politely. Your attorney has already called twice. He is downstairs. Victor looked at him with pure disbelief. Daniel adjusted his glasses. He arrived before you realized you needed him. For 1 second, Clara forgot to be afraid and whispered, I like him. Mrs. Han muttered, he is expensive for a reason. Victor's associate with the silver glasses began speaking quickly to the second officer, offering documents, names, excuses. No one seemed to care. Victor looked at Amara one last time. You think this is over? He said. Amara met his eyes.
No, she said.
I think it is finally beginning. The officers led him toward the elevator. He did not fight this time. But as he passed Jae-hwan, he leaned close enough to whisper, You're going to regret humiliating me. Jae-hwan's answer was almost gentle. I humiliated nothing. I revealed what was already there. The elevator doors opened. Victor stepped inside with the officers, but his eyes stayed on Amara until the silver doors slid shut between them. The moment he disappeared, the strength went out of her body. Jae-hwan caught her before she sank. I have you, he whispered. Amara clutched his sleeve. I don't want to cry here. Then don't. I can't stop. Then cry. Her face collapsed against his chest. The rooftop blurred. Clara's hand rubbed her back. Mrs. Han ordered everyone else away in a voice so sharp even the hotel executives obeyed, without question. Kai stood near the elevator, watching the numbers descend. Jae-hwan held Amara carefully, one arm around her shoulders, the other hand spread over her back. He did not say it was over. He did not tell her she was safe in that empty, careless way people used when they wanted pain to become convenient. He only held her as if the world could wait. And for a moment it did. But long before Victor followed Amara to Seoul, long before the rooftop, long before the flash drive became evidence, there had been a morning when Amara arrived in Korea with swollen eyes, one suitcase, and no idea how to begin again. The air outside Incheon International Airport had been colder than she expected. She stood near the taxi stand, clutching the handle of her suitcase as people moved around her in quick, confident streams. Families reunited. Businessmen spoke into phones. Young women laughed over coffee cups. Drivers held signs with names printed in Korean and English. No one knew she had just escaped her life. No one knew her hands were still shaking from the messages Victor had sent before the plane took off. You think this makes you brave? You'll call me in 2 weeks. When you fail, don't expect me to save you. Amara had deleted the messages before landing, but she could still feel them under her skin. Her first apartment in Haneul-dong was smaller than the photos promised. The mattress was too firm. The heater made clicking noises at night. The bathroom mirror was cracked in one corner, and the window faced another building so closely she could see a stranger's laundry swaying across the gap. But it had a lock Victor did not have the key to. That first night, Amara sat on the floor because she had not yet bought chairs. She ate convenience store noodles with a plastic fork and cried so hard the broth went cold. Then she laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because freedom, she discovered, could look very ugly at first. It could look like eating alone under fluorescent light in a city where no one knew how to pronounce your name. It could look like checking the door lock 6 times before sleeping. It could look like waking up at 3 a.m. convinced you had heard his footsteps, only to remember there was an ocean between you and the man who taught your body to fear keys turning in doors. Her first weeks at Dawn Culture Partners were not easy either. The office was polished, fast and quiet. People were kind, but careful. Amara smiled too much, apologized too quickly, stayed late even when her tasks were finished because some part of her still believed rest had to be earned. Her supervisor, Ms. Yoon, noticed on the 4th day. You do not need to prove you deserve the chair, Ms. Yoon said without looking up from her tablet. Amara froze. I'm sorry. Ms. Yoon glanced at her. That is what you look like. Like someone waiting to be told she may sit. Amara had no answer. Ms. Yoon's voice softened slightly. You are here because your work was excellent, not because anyone felt sorry for you. Sit like you know that. That night, Amara went home and practiced sitting at her small kitchen table without hunching her shoulders. It sounded ridiculous. It felt revolutionary. Clara Mensah entered her life 2 weeks later during a luxury brand preview where Amara had been assigned to coordinate foreign guest introductions. Clara wore a cream suit, gold earrings, and the relaxed confidence of someone who had survived enough awkward rooms to stop fearing them. She watched Amara mispronounce the name of a Korean designer, then gently leaned in and whispered the correction. Amara whispered back, "Did I just insult his bloodline?" Clara's mouth twitched. Not his bloodline. Maybe his ancestors a little. Amara tried not to laugh and failed. After the event, Clara found her near the service hallway. You're new, Clara said. That obvious? Painfully, Amara sighed. Thank you for your honesty. I'm Ghanaian. We consider it a public service. Amara laughed again, and this time it did not hurt. Clara offered her a ride home. Amara almost refused. Trusting strangers was not a habit she had kept. But Clara did not push. She simply said, I'm going toward Haneul-dong. If you want to sit in silence and pretend this conversation never happened, that is also available. Amara accepted. That ride became coffee the next week. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became Clara showing up at Amara's apartment with bedsheets, a proper kettle, and a warning that no grown woman should be drinking instant coffee unless she is in prison or heartbreak. I might qualify for the second one, Amara had said quietly. Clara had looked at her for a long moment. Then she put the kettle down. Who was he? Amara's throat closed. She had not planned to tell anyone. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But Clara did not ask like she wanted gossip. She asked like she already knew the shape of the wound. So, Amara told her a little. Not everything. Just enough. Clara listened without interrupting. When Amara finished, Clara did not say, Why did you stay? She did not say, You should have left sooner. She did not say, But did he hit you? She only said, I'm glad you got out. Amara cried then. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a few tears she wiped away quickly. Clara pretended not to notice, which somehow made Amara love her immediately. Through Clara, Seoul became less lonely. She learned which markets sold familiar spices, which salons understood black hair, which taxi apps were easiest to use, which neighborhoods were safe to wander at night, and which wealthy Korean women could insult you for 10 minutes without changing their smile. Amara also learned that elite Seoul had layers. There were rich people. Then there were powerful people. Then there were names that made powerful people lower their voices. Min Jae-hwan was one of those names. The first time Amara heard it, she was arranging seating cards for a private dinner at Soria House. Ms. Yoon entered the room with 3 senior coordinators behind her. "Move Chairman Min away from the south window," Ms. Yoon said. One coordinator went pale, but Minister Kwon requested that table. Then Minister Kwon can discover humility. Amara looked up. The room went silent. Ms. Yoon noticed her confusion. "Amara, if a seating chart ever asks you to choose between a minister and Min Jae-hwan, choose Min Jae-hwan." "Is he that important?" One of the coordinators gave a nervous laugh. Ms. Yoon did not laugh. "He is that avoided." That should have warned Amara. Instead, it made her curious. At the dinner, she expected a loud man. Someone flashy. Someone who needed gold, noise, and fear to announce him before he entered. But Min Jae-hwan arrived quietly. No entourage crowding him. No raised voice. No performative smile. Just a tall man in a dark suit stepping through the entrance while every conversation in the room adjusted around him. Not stopped. Adjusted. Like the room itself had inhaled. Amara stood near the reception desk, holding the guest list. She looked down quickly when his eyes passed over her, irritated at herself for reacting. He was handsome, yes, but Seoul had no shortage of handsome men in expensive suits. It was not his face that unsettled her. It was the control. He looked like a man who had already counted every exit, every lie, every weakness in the room before removing his gloves. A foreign investor beside Amara leaned toward his friend and whispered, "That's Min? I thought he'd be older." His friend whispered back, "Careful. Men like him are born old." Amara almost smiled. Then one of the guests, a drunk luxury developer from Hong Kong, snapped his fingers at her. "You," he said in English, "bring more wine." Amara turned. "I'm not service staff, sir. I can call someone for you." The man looked her up and down. "Then what are you? Decoration?" The words were not loud, but they reached the wrong ears. Amara felt heat rise in her face. She opened her mouth, ready to answer. But before she could, Min Jae-hwan spoke from 3 feet away. "Mr. Lau." The man turned and immediately straightened. "Chairman Min." Jae-hwan's expression remained mild. "You are speaking to the woman responsible for making sure your investors sit at the correct table, receive the correct introductions, and leave this dinner believing you are more competent than your last quarterly report suggests." The room went quiet around them. Mr. Lau's smile trembled. "I meant no disrespect." Jae-hwan looked at Amara. "Did he?" The question startled her. Not because he had asked, because everyone waited for her answer. Amara looked at Mr. Lau. His eyes pleaded now. She could have saved him. The old Amara might have. Instead, she said, "Yes, he did." Jae-hwan turned back to him. "Then apologize." Mr. Lau's face reddened, but he bowed his head. "My apologies." Amara held his gaze. Accepted. Jae-hwan walked away without another word. Later that night, when the dinner was almost over, Amara stepped into the courtyard to breathe. The air smelled faintly of pine and rain. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to calm the strange shaking in her hands. "Does justice always make you uncomfortable?" She turned. Jae-hwan stood a few feet away, holding a cup of tea. Amara stiffened. "I'm not uncomfortable." He looked at her hands. She lowered them immediately. "I'm fine," she said. "I did not ask if you were fine." That's what people mean when they ask questions like that. Not always. She studied him, unsure whether to be grateful or annoyed. "I could have handled him." "I know. Then why did you step in?" Jae-hwan took a sip of tea. Because you should not have to handle everything just to prove you can. That silenced her. He offered the tea. She did not take it. Do you always rescue women in courtyards?
No.
Just foreign consultants? His mouth almost curved. Only the ones who look ready to stab a man with a seating card. A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. It surprised both of them. For the first time since she arrived in Seoul, Amara forgot to be afraid of how she sounded. Jae-hwan looked at her then, really looked, and something quiet shifted between them. Not love. Not yet. But recognition. Two people who knew what it meant to stand in rooms where every smile was a weapon. Amara looked away first.
Thank you, she said.
You are welcome. But next time, she added, let me decide whether I want help. Jae-hwan bowed his head slightly. Then next time, I will ask. She should have walked away. Instead, she stayed. And because she stayed, he asked her one question that changed the direction of both their lives. What brought you to Seoul, Amara Whitfield? She looked at him, startled that he knew her full name. Then she smiled faintly. The truth. Preferably. She looked up at the dark Korean sky and said, I came here because I needed a place where no one knew who I used to be. Jae-hwan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, that is a heavy thing to carry alone. Amara's smile disappeared. Yes, she said softly. It is. Neither of them knew then that 18 months later, he would stand between her and the man she had crossed the world to escape. Neither of them knew that Victor Nwosu would bring his empire to Korea and watch it burn under the weight of his own sins. And neither of them knew that the woman standing in that courtyard, still shaking from one stranger's insult, would one day stand on a rooftop with her cheek burning and her child moving inside her, and choose consequences over fear. But that night, before everything became love and war and bloodless revenge, Min Jae-hwan simply looked at Amara and said, then perhaps Seoul should learn who you are now. After that night at Soryo House, Amara told herself she would not think about Min Jae-hwan again. That decision lasted 3 days. On the 4th morning, a package arrived at Dawn Culture Partners with her name written neatly across the front. Inside was a book. Not flowers. Not jewelry. Not perfume.
A book.
It was a rare English translation of Korean poems by women who had written under false names during times when their voices were not welcome in public. Between the pages, tucked like a secret, was a small white card. You said you came to Seoul, so no one would know who you used to be. Perhaps this will remind you that women have always known how to rename themselves. MJ. Amara read the note 3 times. Then she put the book in her drawer, closed it, and told herself she was not impressed. 5 minutes later, she opened the drawer again. Clara found out by lunch. You're smiling at your desk, Clara said, sliding into the chair across from her with a coffee cup in hand. That means money, revenge, or a man. Which one? Amara closed the drawer too quickly. Clara's eyes dropped to it.
Oh.
A man. It is not a man. Then show me.
No.
Definitely a man. Amara tried to continue typing, but Clara leaned forward like a detective about to solve a national crime. Is it Chairman Quiet Danger? Amara's fingers froze. Clara gasped. It is. Lower your voice. I knew it. I knew something happened at that dinner. Nothing happened. A powerful man defended you, found you alone in a courtyard, and now you're hiding gifts in your desk. In African anti-court, that is already engagement. Amara laughed despite herself. It's a book. That's worse. How is that worse? Flowers die. Jewelry can be returned. A book means he listened. Amara looked away. That was what unsettled her most. Victor had bought her things too. Expensive things. Loud things. Things meant to be seen on her body, so other people would know she belonged beside him. But he had never given her anything that proved he had listened to her when no one else was watching. For 1 week, she did not reply. Then another package arrived. This one contained tea. The same tea Jae-hwan had offered her in the courtyard. The card said only, in case you decide to accept it this time. Amara stared at it for so long Misyun passed by and said, without stopping, if you are going to fall in love, please do not do it during office hours. I'm not falling in love, Amara said. Ms. Yoon kept walking. Then you are wasting company time for no reason. That evening, Amara sent a message to the number printed at the bottom of the card. Thank you for the book and tea. His reply came 6 minutes later. You are welcome. She waited. Nothing else came. No pressure. No invitation. No demand for attention. She frowned at the phone. Clara, who was sitting on Amara's couch eating plantain chips, looked over. What did he say? You are welcome. That's it. That's it. Clara nodded slowly. Dangerous. Why is that dangerous? He knows how to leave space. Amara looked at the phone again.
Space. She had forgotten what that felt like.
With Victor, silence had always been punishment. A message left unanswered meant she had to explain herself. A missed call meant an argument. A delay meant suspicion. But Jae-hwan's quietness did not feel like a trap. It felt like a door he was not forcing her to walk through. A week later, she walked through it. Their first dinner was not in a luxury restaurant. Jae-hwan invited her to a small noodle shop near the river that looked like it had been there before half the city learned how to pretend it was modern. Amara almost teased him when she arrived. I expected chandeliers. Jae-hwan stood from the table. I can arrange chandeliers. No, she said quickly. This is better. He watched her remove her coat. You sound surprised. I am. Because of the rumors? Because of the suits. That almost made him smile. They sat across from each other in a corner booth. The owner, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, brought their food without taking an order. She placed an extra bowl of kimchi near Amara and gave Jae-hwan a look that made him lower his head slightly. Amara noticed. You're afraid of her. Everyone with sense is afraid of her. The old woman shouted something from behind the counter. Jae-hwan answered in Korean, his tone respectful. Amara raised an eyebrow. What did she say? She said you are too pretty for me. And what did you say? I told her I know. Amara tried not to smile.
Failed.
The dinner should have felt awkward. It did not. Jae-hwan asked questions, but not the kind that felt like interrogation. He asked what kind of work made her lose track of time. What food she missed most from home. What music she played when she needed courage. Whether Seoul felt like a beginning or a hiding place. That last question made her quiet. Jae-hwan did not rush to fill the silence. Finally, Amara said, both. He nodded as if that answer made perfect sense. Beginnings often look like hiding at first. She looked at him over the steam rising from her bowl. You speak like someone who has done both. His eyes lowered for a moment. I have. She wanted to ask more. She did not. Because he had given her space, and now she knew enough to give it back. Over the next months, Jae-hwan became a careful presence in Amara's life. He sent a car only when she agreed. He invited her out, but never complained when she refused. He walked on the street side of the pavement without making a show of it. He remembered that she hated being touched from behind. He learned to say her name not like an English word he was borrowing, but like something he had permission to hold. Still, Amara remained guarded. Sometimes she would catch herself laughing with him and suddenly go quiet, as if joy itself had become suspicious. Sometimes he would lift his hand too quickly, and she would flinch before she could stop herself. The first time it happened, shame burned through her. I'm sorry, she said immediately. Jae-hwan stepped back.
No.
She looked up. No. You do not apologize for what someone else taught your body to fear. Her eyes filled before she could look away. He did not move closer. He did not reach for her. He only stood there, giving her enough room to decide what came next. That was the day Amara began to trust him. Not fully, not blindly, but enough to stop pretending she was untouched by the past. One rainy evening, she told him about Victor. They were in Jae-hwan's private library, a quiet room inside his home on the hill above the city. Rain tapped against the tall windows. Shelves climbed the walls. A fire burned low near the center of the room. Amara sat on one end of the sofa, her knees drawn close, a cup of tea cooling between her hands. He never started cruel, she said. That's what people don't understand. Jae-hwan sat across from her, elbows on his knees, listening. At first, he was attentive, protective. He remembered everything. He made me feel chosen. She swallowed. Then slowly, being chosen started to feel like being watched. Jae-hwan's face was unreadable, but his eyes were not cold. They were focused, present. He didn't like my friends. Then he said they didn't really like me. He didn't like my clothes. Then he said he was helping me look more serious. He didn't like my clients. Then he said they only respected me because of him. Her voice cracked. By the time he started calling me ungrateful, I had already started wondering if he was right. Jae-hwan's hand closed slowly into a fist. Amara saw it.
Don't, she said.
He looked at her. Don't turn angry yet. I need to finish before your anger becomes louder than my voice. His fist opened. I'm listening. She breathed out shakily. He made everything my fault. If he shouted, I pushed him. If he insulted me, I was too sensitive. If he threatened me, I made him desperate. And the worst part is, she wiped her cheek angrily. The worst part is I stayed long enough to believe some of it. Jae-hwan's voice was quiet. You survived long enough to leave. Amara looked at him. I don't always feel brave. You are not required to feel brave. Only to move. That broke something in her. She cried then. Not prettily. Not softly. She cried the way someone cries when they are finally allowed to stop making pain understandable for other people. Jae-hwan did not touch her until she reached for him first. When she did, he moved to her side and held her like something precious but not fragile. That difference mattered. Weeks later, Amara learned the truth about him. Not all at once. Truths like Jae-hwan's did not arrive through confessions. They arrived through small inconsistencies. A man at a restaurant saw Jae-hwan and left without eating. A minister waited in a hallway for 20 minutes just to greet him. A security officer at a private airport bowed too deeply. A businessman who had spoken rudely to Amara at a reception found his company under audit the next morning. When she asked Jae-hwan about that last one, he said his company was already under review. Already? Yes. And the timing? Unfortunate. Jae-hwan. He looked at her. She folded her arms. Did you punish him because of me?
No.
She stared.
He sighed.
I allowed the punishment to arrive without delay because of you. That is the same thing with better grammar. His mouth curved faintly. She did not smile. I need the truth, she said. His expression changed. There it was. The wall. For the first time, Amara saw how much he had not told her. Not because he did not care. Because he cared too much, and men like him believed secrecy was kindness, when the truth was ugly. Who are you? She asked. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, publicly, chairman of Hanmin Global Group. And privately? His eyes met hers. The man people call when public systems fail, or when they want them to fail. Amara's stomach tightened. That sounds like crime. It has been. Has been. My father built an empire with fear. Debt, ports, gambling, protection networks, political favors. His voice remained calm, but something old moved beneath it. When he died, everyone expected me to continue exactly as he had. I did not. You cleaned it. I disciplined it. That is not the same. No, he admitted. It is not. Amara stood and walked toward the window, needing space from him, from herself, from the terrible realization that danger had found her again, wearing a gentler face. I ran from a powerful man, she said. Do you understand that? I ran because I was tired of being near someone who could ruin people with a phone call. I know. She turned. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you can ruin more people with fewer words. His face tightened. Yes. That honesty hurt more than denial would have. Amara shook her head. I can't do this. Jae-hwan did not move. He only said, then don't. She stared at him. What? If peace means leaving me, then choose peace. Her throat closed. Victor would have blocked the door. Victor would have cried, shouted, threatened, begged, blamed her, reminded her of everything he had given, everything she would lose, everything she owed. Jae-hwan stood still, suffering quietly, letting her go. Amara hated him for making it harder. You won't stop me? She asked. His voice was rougher now. I will not become the reason you feel trapped again. She looked away, tears burning behind her eyes. I don't know if I can trust a dangerous man. Jae-hwan nodded. Then trust this. I will never ask you to stay where you cannot breathe. Amara left that night. She made it all the way to the gate of his house before her knees weakened. Kai was standing near the car, pretending not to notice her crying. Do you need a driver, Ms. Whitfield? He asked softly. Amara wiped her face. Do you all always appear from shadows? Only when scheduled. Despite everything, she laughed once. Then she looked back at the house. Jae-hwan had not followed her. He had given her exactly what she asked for. Freedom. And somehow, that was the thing that made her turn around. When she returned to the library, Jae-hwan was still standing in the same place. He looked at her as if he had forced himself not to hope. Amara walked up to him. I am not staying because I'm not afraid, she said. I am afraid. I know. I'm staying because you told me the truth when lying would have been easier. His eyes darkened with emotion. And because you let me leave. She stepped closer. But if you ever make decisions for me because you think your protection matters more than my choice, I will walk away, and I will not come back. Jae-hwan bowed his head. I understand. I mean it. I believe you. She studied his face. Then she said, Good. He looked at her mouth, then back at her eyes. May I kiss you? That question destroyed the last of her defenses. Not because it was romantic, though it was. Because it was permission. Because it was choice. Because a man with enough power to make ministers wait in hallways still asked before touching her. Amara answered by closing the space between them. Their first kiss was not desperate. It was careful at first, almost reverent. Then Amara's hand curled into his shirt, and Jae-hwan breathed her name like a vow he was afraid to make too loudly. Outside, Seoul glittered beneath the rain. Inside, Amara kissed a dangerous man and realized danger did not always mean the absence of safety. Sometimes safety was not a soft life. Sometimes it was a hard man kneeling his pride before your freedom. Months passed. The relationship became real in ways Amara had not expected. Not perfect.
Real.
They argued. Mostly because Jae-hwan's calm could become infuriating and Amara's independence could become a blade she swung even at people trying to love her. He hated when she traveled alone at night. She hated when his security men appeared where she had not asked for them. He liked silence after conflict. She needed words. Once, after a disagreement about a charity event she wanted to attend without his team, Amara snapped, I am not one of your shipments to be tracked. Jae-hwan went still. Then he said, You are right. She had expected defense. He gave her adjustment. The next morning, he handed her a written security plan with 3 options and said, Choose what makes you feel safe, not what makes me feel in control. Amara stared at the paper for almost a minute. Then she said, You are annoyingly teachable. He replied, Only with you. That was the first time she imagined marrying him. The actual proposal came quietly at Gyeongram Bay, where the sea was gray and the wind kept pulling loose curls from her scarf. Jae-hwan did not kneel in front of strangers. He did not hire violinists. He did not make a spectacle of her answer. He took her to a small wooden pier after lunch and handed her a plain velvet box. Amara looked at it, then at him. Jae-hwan. I had a speech, he said. You did? Yes. What happened to it? I saw your face and forgot language. She laughed, then cried immediately, which made him look alarmed. I'm sorry, he said. Was that bad? No, she said, wiping her cheeks. It was annoyingly perfect. He opened the box. The ring was elegant, not huge, not designed to shout. A dark sapphire set between 2 small diamonds. I will not promise you an easy life, he said. That would be a lie. I will not promise that my world will never touch you. That would also be a lie. His voice lowered. But I promise that you will never have to earn love through fear. I promise I will tell you the truth even when it costs me. I promise your choice will remain yours, even when I am terrified of it. Amara could not speak. He continued, And if one day you wake up and decide I am no longer your piece, I will still protect the road you take away from me." She covered her mouth. "You cannot say things like that and expect me to stay composed. I am not asking you to stay composed." She looked at the man before her. The one people feared, the one power obeyed, the one who had learned the shape of her wounds and touched only where she allowed. "Yes," she whispered. His breath stopped. "Yes, yes, Jae-hwan. I'll marry you." For the first time since she had known him, his control broke fully. He pulled her into his arms, then froze halfway. Amara laughed through tears. "You can hug me."
He did. Tightly.
Like he had been holding his breath for months. Their wedding was small. Clara cried before the ceremony even began. Mrs. Han pretended not to cry and failed. Kai stood near the back, scanning the shoreline like assassins might rise from the waves, though Amara later saw him wipe one eye with his sleeve. When Jae-hwan slid the ring onto her finger, he said in Korean first, then English, "Your freedom is safe with me." Amara answered, "Then my heart is safe with you." For a while, life was almost gentle. Almost. Then one morning, 3 months after the doctor confirmed Amara was pregnant, Jae-hwan received a file from Daniel Park. He opened it in his study while the city was still dark. Victor Nwosu had entered Korea under a foreign investor visa. His company was bidding on land tied to the Mirae Crown residences. His first private meeting was scheduled in 5 days. Jae-hwan read the report once. Then again. By the third reading, the paper in his hand had bent at the edges.
Kai stood across from the desk.
"Do we tell Mrs. Min?" he asked. Jae-hwan looked toward the closed door. Beyond it, upstairs, Amara was still sleeping with one hand on her belly, unaware that the past had just cleared customs. His answer came too late. "Not yet."
Kai's face changed.
"Chairman." Jae-hwan's eyes hardened. "Watch him." Quietly.
Kai hesitated.
"And Mrs. Min?" Jae-hwan closed the folder. "Do not let him near her." The order was simple. The mistake was not. And if you are still watching, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because from this moment, every decision Jae-hwan made to protect Amara quietly began leading them straight back to the rooftop, where Victor would make his final mistake. Victor Nwosu arrived in Seoul like a man who believed cities existed to be purchased. His plane landed before sunrise, sleek and private, cutting through gray morning clouds above Incheon. By the time his car rolled toward the city, he was already on his third call, his voice smooth, confident, practiced. "No," he said, staring out at the highway lights. "I don't want introductions. I want commitments. Korean investors respect certainty, and certainty is what we are selling." His assistant, Michael, sat across from him with a tablet balanced on his knees. "The preliminary meetings are strong," Michael said. "But there are some concerns about the offshore financing structure." Victor's eyes shifted to him. Michael immediately regretted speaking. Concerns from who? Legal teams. Mostly local counsel. Victor smiled without warmth, then replaced them with counsel that understands ambition. Michael looked down. "Yes, sir." Victor returned his gaze to the window. Seoul rose ahead of him, silver and glass and promise. He had studied the market for months. Luxury residences, foreign buyers, waterfront redevelopment, politicians hungry for international money, developers willing to look away if the right numbers appeared in the right accounts. It was perfect. And after the humiliation he had suffered in New York, he needed perfect. People thought he did not notice whispers. They thought because he still wore expensive suits and closed expensive deals, he did not know the old rooms had become colder. But he knew. He knew when partners stopped inviting him to private dinners. He knew when investors asked extra questions. He knew when people smiled at him while searching for safer men to trust. Amara leaving had not destroyed him. That was what he told himself. But her silence had humiliated him. She did not call, did not beg, did not come crawling back, did not even give him the satisfaction of knowing where her pain had landed. A woman like Amara was not supposed to disappear. She was supposed to regret. So when Victor learned that Dawn Culture Partners had once employed an Amara Whitfield in Seoul, something ugly and satisfied opened in him. There you are, he had thought. He did not know she was married. He did not know she was pregnant. He did not know the name Min attached to her now could close more doors than his money could open. All he knew was that the woman who left him had built a life somewhere beyond his reach. And Victor hated anything beyond his reach. Across the city, in Jae-hwan's study, the first report on Victor had already become 6. Daniel Park stood near the desk, tablet in hand, his face grim. He is using Mirae Crown Holdings as the Korean-facing entity, Daniel said. But the money trail connects back to 2 offshore accounts, one private lender in Singapore, and a development fund in Dubai that has already been questioned for laundering concerns. Jae-hwan sat behind the desk, silent. Kai stood by the window, arms folded. Daniel continued. He has meetings scheduled with 3 local partners. One of them owes money to a subsidiary connected to us. Another is seeking transport permits we can influence. The third is desperate. Desperate men take bad deals, Jae-hwan said. Yes, Daniel replied. And Victor is offering one. Kai looked at Jae-hwan. Does he know she is here? Not yet. Daniel hesitated. Chairman, with respect, Mrs. Min should be informed before he discovers it himself. Jae-hwan's eyes remained on the file. I will tell her. When? After I know whether he is a threat or just noise. Kai's jaw tightened. Jae-hwan noticed. Say it. Kai looked reluctant, but he spoke. If someone from her past entered Korea and you delayed telling her, she would not call that protection. The study went quiet. Daniel suddenly became fascinated by his tablet. Jae-hwan's expression did not change, but something in his eyes hardened. Not at Kai, but at the truth. You think I do not know that? Kai lowered his gaze. I think knowing and doing are not always the same. Daniel looked even harder at his tablet. Jae-hwan leaned back slowly. Other men would have punished Kai for speaking so directly. Jae-hwan had inherited plenty of men who believed loyalty meant silence. He had removed most of them. Still, hearing the truth did not make it easier to obey. Upstairs, Amara was asleep, pregnant, peaceful, finally free from the daily expectation of disaster. How could he walk into their bedroom, sit beside her, and say the name that still lived under her skin? Victor is in Korea. Jae-hwan looked at the report again. Victor had not contacted her, had not approached her, had not yet discovered her marriage. The threat was still containable. At least that was what Jae-hwan told himself. Watch him, he said. Every meeting, every call we can legally access, through partners. Every account movement. I want to know who welcomes him and who regrets it. Daniel nodded. And Mrs. Min? Jae-hwan closed the file. I said I will tell her. But he did not tell her that day. Or the next. And secrecy, like rot, rarely announces itself at the beginning. At first, Amara noticed only small changes. A car she did not recognize parked across the street from her women's support office. Kai appearing more often than usual. Jae-hwan taking calls in rooms he normally left open. Daniel visiting twice in 1 week and stopping mid-sentence when Amara entered the study. She tried to ignore it because pregnancy had already made her suspicious of everything. She cried at advertisements. Forgot words mid-sentence. Ate mango at midnight. Once, she accused Jae-hwan of hiding cookies from her and then found them in her own drawer. So, when the first strange feeling came, she dismissed it. But feelings trained by danger do not sleep forever. They wait. One afternoon, Amara was at the support center reviewing applications from women who needed emergency housing assistance. The center was still small then, just 3 rooms above a clinic in a quiet part of the city, but to Amara it felt larger than any ballroom she had ever entered. A woman named Lila sat across from her, twisting tissue between her fingers. He says if I leave, immigration will believe him, not me, Lila whispered. He has money. His family knows people. I don't know anyone here. Amara's chest tightened. She knew that fear. Different country. Different man. Same cage. She leaned forward gently. Listen to me. The first thing we do is separate what he said from what is true. Men who want control often speak like they're the law. They are not the law. Lila looked up, tears shining. What if he finds me? Amara placed a hand over hers. Then we make sure you are not alone when he does. The words left her mouth with certainty. Then, for reasons she could not explain, she thought of Jae-hwan. Not alone. Was that what he was trying to make sure of? Or was he deciding how alone she was allowed to feel? When she returned home that evening, Jae-hwan was in the nursery. It had become his favorite room, though he pretended otherwise. He stood near the half-built crib, sleeves rolled up, a tiny instruction manual in one hand and a screwdriver in the other. Amara stopped at the door. You run companies across 3 countries, but that crib has been defeating you for 2 days. He looked up. The instructions are disrespectful. She laughed, and for a moment, the worry in her chest loosened. He watched her face. How is the center? Hard. Do you want to talk about it? She walked in slowly and sat in the rocking chair near the window. One of the women reminded me of myself. Jae-hwan's expression softened. In what way? She is afraid because the person hurting her convinced her nobody else can protect her. Amara touched her belly absently. I told her we would make sure she wasn't alone. Jae-hwan set the screwdriver down. That is true. Yes, Amara said. But it made me think. He became very still. About what? About protection. About how easily it can become control when the protected person is not allowed to know what is happening. Jae-hwan did not answer. The silence told her more than words would have. Amara looked up sharply. Why are you not telling me? His face changed. Just a little. But she knew him now. Jae-hwan. He stepped away from the crib. There are business matters I am handling. Her heartbeat picked up. What business matters? Amara. No, she stood slowly. Do not say my name like you are trying to calm me before giving me half the truth. His mouth closed. Fear moved through her body, so quickly, she had to grip the rocking chair. Is it about me? Jae-hwan's silence answered. Her voice lowered. Who? He looked away for 1 second. 1 second too long. Amara's blood went cold. Victor. Jae-hwan's eyes returned to hers. Her breath left her. The nursery blurred around the edges. He's here, she said. It was not a question. Jae-hwan stepped toward her. He entered Korea 9 days ago. 9. Amara. 9 days. Her voice cracked. You knew for 9 days? I needed to understand why he was here before I brought fear into this house. She stared at him, stunned. Brought fear into this house? She repeated. You think silence kept fear outside? I had him watched. Oh, so that makes it better? No, he said. It makes it contained. She recoiled. Contained. The word tasted like betrayal. Jae-hwan's face tightened. That is not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. You contained the threat. You contained the information. You contained me. His eyes flashed with pain. I was trying to protect you. And I told you what that becomes when you do it without my consent. The words hit him. He looked toward the crib, then back at her. You are pregnant. I am not helpless. I know that. Do you? She said, tears rising now. Because every time men decide what I can handle, they call it care. Victor called it care when he checked my phone. He called it care when he chose my clients. He called it care when he told me the truth would hurt me too much. Jae-hwan flinched, as if she had struck him. I am not him. No, she said, voice trembling. But today, you sounded too close. Silence crashed between them. For the first time since she had known him, Jae-hwan looked truly afraid. Not afraid of an enemy. Afraid of himself. Amara wiped her face angrily. Tell me everything. Now. Not the version designed to keep me calm. Everything. He nodded. Then he told her. Victor's arrival. The Meridian Crown project. The offshore accounts. The local partners. The reports. Kai's surveillance. Daniel's legal preparation. The fact that Victor had not yet approached her, but likely would once he discovered her marriage. Amara listened without interrupting. With every sentence, her fear sharpened into something more useful. Anger. When Jae-hwan finished, she sat slowly in the rocking chair. The baby moved. She placed both hands over her belly. Jae-hwan's voice was rough. I should have told you. Yes. I was wrong. Yes. I was afraid of what it would do to you. Amara looked at him. What hurt me most was not his name, she said. It was hearing it from you too late. His eyes lowered. I am sorry. She believed him. That did not erase it. What happens now? She asked. We continue watching him. Daniel is preparing legal complaints if he violates Korean financial law. His project has weaknesses. That is not enough. Jae-hwan looked up. Amara's eyes were wet, but steady. If Victor is here doing what he always does, I want him stopped. Not because he was my ex. Not because you are angry. Because he is dangerous. I agree. And I want my evidence included. Jae-hwan went still. The flash drive? Yes.
His voice softened.
You do not have to open that wound. I know. Her hand tightened over her belly. But I work with women every day who are terrified because men like Victor count on silence. I cannot tell them to speak if I am still hiding from my own voice. Jae-hwan knelt in front of her. Amara, listen to me. If you choose this, he will fight dirty. He already fights dirty. He will try to shame you. He already did. He will try to say you wanted the life he gave you. I know. He will try to make the world ask why you stayed. Her chin trembled. For a moment, pain crossed her face, so raw he almost reached for her. But she lifted her head before he could. Then I will answer. Jae-hwan stared at her as if seeing her again, not as his wife, not as the mother of his child, not as someone to protect, but as the woman who had survived before he ever entered the story. His voice dropped. What do you want me to do? The question returned the ground beneath her feet. Amara breathed in slowly. I want you to stop hiding things from me. I want Daniel to review my evidence. I want security, but I choose how close. And if Victor comes near me, I want the law ready before your anger is. Something like pride moved through Jae-hwan's eyes. The law will be ready. And your anger? He looked down. My anger will obey. She almost smiled, though tears still clung to her lashes. That sounds difficult for you. It will be the hardest thing I have done this year. Good. He bowed his head, resting his forehead lightly against her knees. I am sorry, he whispered again. This time, she placed her hand in his hair. I know. They stay that way for a while, surrounded by half-built furniture and the quiet weight of imperfect love. But the city outside did not pause for healing. Victor moved fast. Within days, his name began appearing in business columns. Mirae Crown Residences was described as a bold new partnership between foreign capital and Korean urban luxury. He smiled in photographs beside men who did not yet know they were standing near a financial fire. Then, finally, he saw Amara. It happened through a magazine spread for the upcoming Blue Orchid Foundation Gala. The article featured notable guests and donors. Near the bottom was a photograph from a previous charity luncheon, Amara standing beside Clara, one hand on her belly, smiling softly as Mrs. Han spoke beside her. The caption read, Amara Whitfield Min, founder of the Hanul Women's Bridge Initiative and wife of Hanmin Global Chairman Min Jae-hwan. Victor stared at the screen for a long time. Michael stood across from him in the hotel suite. Sir? Victor zoomed in on the photo. Her face was fuller. Her hair was styled differently. Her smile was calmer than he remembered. And her hand rested over a pregnant belly.
Wife. Pregnant. Min.
For several seconds, Victor said nothing. Then he laughed. It was not amusement. It was disbelief turning rotten. She married him. Michael shifted uneasily. You know her? Victor looked up slowly. Know her? His smile spread. I built her. Michael said nothing. Victor looked back at the photo. The longer he stared, the more the image insulted him. Amara standing among powerful women. Amara smiling without permission. Amara carrying another man's child. Amara with a name attached to hers that opened doors Victor could not force. His hand tightened around the phone. Get me an invitation to that gala. Michael hesitated. The Blue Orchid event is extremely private. Victor looked at him. Michael swallowed. I'll make calls. The waiter nodded, eyes lowered. Amara hesitated. The terrace was only steps away, visible from the corridor. Security nearby. She needed air. Clara said, I'm coming. The waiter quickly added, Ms. Mensah, The event coordinator requested you near the donor table. Something about the pledge announcement. Clara's eyes narrowed. Now. Amara touched her arm.
Go.
I'll be fine for 2 minutes.
No.
Clara. No, I don't like this. Amara almost argued, but then Mrs. Han's voice called from farther down the corridor, sharp and urgent. Clara, come here, please. Clara looked torn. Amara smiled weakly. I'll stand by the door. I promise. Clara pointed at her. 2 minutes. If you vanish, I am fighting everyone in this building. Amara nodded. She stepped onto the rooftop terrace. The air was cold. The city spread below, glittering and distant. For a moment, she breathed deeply and let the noise of the gala fade behind her. Then the door clicked shut. Amara turned. Victor stood between her and the entrance. The waiter was gone. Her body knew before her mind finished understanding. It had been a setup. Victor smiled. Now, he said softly, we can talk. Amara's hand moved to her belly. Move away from the door. Victor tilted his head. You used to say please. I used to be afraid of you. His smile thinned. You still are. Amara's heart pounded, but she raised her chin. No. My body remembers you. That is not the same thing. For a moment, rage flashed across his face. Then he stepped closer. Inside the building, beyond the thick glass, music swelled. People laughed. Glasses clinked. The world continued, unaware that Amara's past had just locked itself on a rooftop with her. Victor's voice dropped. You should have answered my calls. You should have stayed in New York. You really think he loves you? Amara said nothing. Victor moved closer. You think a man like Min Jae-hwan marries a woman like you because of love? Her stomach tightened. Stop. No, let's be honest. You were lonely. He was powerful. You wanted protection, and he wanted something beautiful and damaged enough to be grateful. The words hit a wound he had not created but knew how to find. Amara forced herself not to step back. I said stop. Victor smiled. There she is. Still pretending strength is the same as not crying. She reached for the door handle. He grabbed her wrist. And somewhere inside the hotel, Kai Sunwoo realized the terrace camera had gone dark. Kai Sunwoo saw the terrace camera blink once. Then the screen went black. He did not wait for confirmation. Kai, the security operator asked, turning toward him. Kai was already moving. He pulled the earpiece closer to his mouth as he cut through the service corridor. North terrace camera down. Mrs. Min last seen near access door. Lock down the eastern stairwell. Do not alarm the guests yet. Static crackled. Then Jae-hwan's voice came through, calm enough to frighten everyone listening. Where is she? Kai's pace quickened. North terrace. There was half a second of silence. Then Jae-hwan said, I'm coming. Kai ran. Inside the ballroom, Clara was still arguing with the event coordinator, who claimed no one had called her to the donor table. Mrs. Han stood beside her, face hardening as the truth formed between them. I did not send Amara to the terrace, Mrs. Han said. Clara went cold. What? Mrs. Han turned sharply to the nearest guard. Where is Mrs. Min? The guard touched his earpiece, then stiffened. Clara did not need to hear the answer. She lifted her dress slightly and ran. On the terrace, Amara twisted her wrist, trying to free herself from Victor's grip. Let go of me. Victor tightened his hand. You always did this, he hissed. Always making me look like the villain because you don't know how to listen. Amara's back was to the cold glass railing again. The city stretched beneath them, beautiful and merciless. She could see the ballroom lights through the terrace doors, but Victor's body blocked the entrance. Let go, she said again, her voice shaking now. Victor looked down at her belly and laughed bitterly. Pregnant, he said. You really thought that would save you from being who you are? Amara's eyes burned. Who I am has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me. No, Victor. You were a chapter one almost died inside. Not the author. His face changed. For a second, she knew the slap was coming before his hand moved. It struck her across the cheek so hard her head turned. Pain flashed bright and hot. Her ears rang. She stumbled sideways, one hand flying to her belly. Victor froze for half a breath, as if even he had not meant to do it that hard. Then his pride stepped in to save him from shame. "Look what you made me do." The sentence landed heavier than the slap. Amara slowly turned back to him. The old Amara would have begged. The old Amara would have apologized. The old Amara would have tried to calm him, so he would not become worse. But tonight, the pain in her cheek woke every buried version of herself. The woman on the bathroom floor accepting the job offer. The woman on the airplane asking for water with shaking hands. The woman in Seoul learning to sit like she deserved the chair. The woman in Jae-hwan's library saying she needed to finish before his anger became louder than her voice. The woman in the nursery telling her husband not to protect her by controlling the truth. All of them rose inside her. "No," Amara whispered. Victor frowned. "What?"
No.
She shoved him. Not hard enough to hurt him, but hard enough to startle him. His grip loosened. Amara pulled her wrist free and stepped toward the door, but Victor grabbed the back of her arm. She jerked away, her heel slipping on the terrace floor. Her body tilted backward. The railing hit her spine. Someone screamed from inside. Victor's hand shot out, not to save her, but to grab her again. That was when the terrace door burst open. Kai came through like a blade. He crossed the space in a blur, caught Amara around the waist, and pulled her away from the railing just as her balance gave out. She fell against him with a cry, both hands wrapped over her belly. Kai turned his body, placing himself between Amara and Victor. "Mrs. Min," he said, breath controlled though his eyes were deadly. "Are you hurt?" Amara could barely speak. "My baby," she whispered. "I don't know. I don't know."
Kai's face changed.
Only slightly. But Victor saw it and took a step back. Then Clara rushed through the door, with Mrs. Han behind her. "Oh my God!" Clara cried. She wrapped her arms around Amara from the side, shaking with rage and fear. Mrs. Han took one look at Amara's cheek, one look at the railing, and turned toward Victor with a kind of hatred that did not need volume. "You foolish dead man." Victor snapped. She tripped. Clara spun on him. "You slapped her." I said she tripped. The ballroom guests began gathering behind the glass. Faces appeared. Whispers rose. Phones lifted. Security pushed people back, but the damage was done. Then the elevator opened. Jae-hwan stepped out. Amara saw him and almost broke. Not because he looked angry. Because he did not. His calm was terrible. He walked onto the terrace slowly, eyes moving over everything. Kai's position, Clara holding Amara, the red mark on Amara's cheek, Victor's uneven breathing, the glass railing still vibrating faintly from the impact. When Jae-hwan reached Amara, he stopped. "Amara." Her lips trembled. "I'm okay," she said, but the words fell apart. He looked at her belly. "The baby?" She moved. Amara whispered quickly. "I felt her move, but I need a doctor." Jae-hwan's mask cracked for 1 second. He turned to Kai. "Medical team. Now." "Already coming," Kai said. Jae-hwan looked back at Amara. "May I touch you?" "Even then. Even there." She nodded. He placed his hand gently against her cheek, not on the bruise beside it. His thumb shook once before he controlled it. "I am here." Victor laughed behind him, desperate and sharp. "How touching." Jae-hwan turned. The terrace went silent. Victor lifted both hands. "Before everyone loses their mind," she stumbled. "We were talking." She got emotional. She stepped back. Jae-hwan said nothing. Victor looked around at the gathering crowd. "You all saw how dramatic this became. Her little guard attacked me earlier. Now, they're trying to frame me because Chairman Min can't handle the fact that his wife has a past." The word wife seemed to poison him. Amara straightened. "Stop lying." Victor's eyes cut to her. "You want to do this publicly?" "Yes," she said. That one word shifted everything. Jae-hwan looked at her. Amara stepped away from Clara, still trembling, still holding her belly. "He slapped me," she said, voice shaking but loud enough for the nearest guest to hear. "He grabbed me. He blocked the door. And he pushed me toward that railing." Victor's face tightened. You are insane. No, Amara said. I am finished being quiet. Victor opened his mouth, but Jae-hwan spoke first. You will not speak over her. Victor barked a laugh. Or what? Jae-hwan took one step toward him. Or you will learn that consequences do not require my anger. That was when Daniel Park arrived with two uniformed officers behind him. Victor's expression faltered. Daniel adjusted his glasses and looked at Victor. Mr. Nwosu, I would advise you to say nothing further without counsel present. Victor stared at him. Who are you? The lawyer who has been waiting for you to make this easier. Jae-hwan did not smile. Daniel opened his folder. At 9:45 p.m., a financial complaint was filed regarding Mirae Crown Holdings and associated offshore accounts. At 10:03, your lender received notice. At 10:06, the primary account was frozen. At 10:11, your local partner withdrew. At 10:14, your construction permissions entered emergency review. Victor's face drained. His phone began ringing. Then Michael, his assistant, burst onto the terrace, pale and sweating. Victor, he said, the board is calling. Singapore froze the transfer. Mr. Choi from the land office withdrew. The investors are asking if the assault allegation is true. Victor turned slowly toward him. Shut up. Michael swallowed. Sir, there are videos. Victor looked back at the guests. Several phones disappeared quickly. His eyes returned to Amara, hatred burning through the panic. You did this. Amara shook her head. No. You did this. I just stopped hiding the proof. Daniel lifted a sealed evidence bag. Inside was the silver flash drive. Victor froze. The sight of it changed him more than the officers, more than Jae-hwan, more than the frozen accounts. Because money could be replaced. Influence could be rebuilt. But evidence had a memory. Amara looked at the flash drive too. For months, it had frightened her. Now it looked so small. How strange, she thought, that something small enough to fit in her palm could carry years of pain. Daniel said, Mrs. Min has agreed to submit recordings, documents, messages, and account records related to previous coercion, threats, and possible financial misconduct. Some of these materials connect directly to the entities currently under investigation. Victor's voice became dangerously soft. Amara. She did not flinch. Don't say my name like you still know how to reach me. He stared at her. You ungrateful woman. Kai moved. Jae-hwan lifted one hand, and Kai stopped. Amara smiled sadly. There he is, she said. That is the man I tried to tell myself wasn't real. Victor's eyes glittered. You think he loves you? You think this Korean gangster is your happy ending? Jae-hwan's face remained still, but everyone felt the danger rising. Amara answered before he could. My happy ending is not a man, Victor. It is the fact that I can stand here, with my voice shaking, and still tell the truth. For a moment, the terrace was completely silent. Then one of the women in the crowd began to clap. Softly at first. Then another. Then another. The sound spread slowly, not loud enough to become celebration, but strong enough to become witness. Victor looked around, horrified. He was losing the room. That frightened him more than Jae-hwan. You think applause changes anything? He shouted. You people don't know her. You don't know what she's capable of. Amara's voice was quiet. They know what you did tonight. The officers stepped forward. One said, Mr. Nwosu, you will come with us. Victor stepped back. I'm not going anywhere. Kai's eyes narrowed. The officer repeated, Mr. Nwosu. Victor looked at Jae-hwan. You're going to regret this. Jae-hwan's voice was calm. No. I would have regretted letting you believe power means permission. The officers took Victor by the arms. He did not fight at first. Then, as they led him toward the elevator, he twisted and shouted toward Amara. You are nothing before me. Amara's whole body went still. For a moment, no one breathed. Then she stepped forward, Clara trying to catch her arm. Amara gently pulled away. She looked directly at Victor. No, she said. I was unfinished before you. I was wounded after you. But I was never nothing. Victor's face cracked with rage. The elevator doors closed on him before he could answer. The silence he left behind felt almost holy. Then Amara's body reminded everyone she was still human. Pain tightened across her stomach.
She gasped.
Jae-hwan caught her immediately. Amara? My stomach, she whispered. Something's wrong. The medical team arrived seconds later, but to Jae-hwan, every second felt like punishment. They moved her inside, away from the cameras, away from the guests, away from the shattered remains of the night. Clara stayed close, crying openly now. Mrs. Han barked orders at hotel staff with enough force to reorganize the entire floor. Kai cleared the path like a silent storm. In the private medical suite downstairs, the doctor examined Amara while Jae-hwan stood outside the curtain, hands clenched so tightly Daniel thought he might draw blood from his palms. Finally, the doctor turned. The baby's heartbeat is strong, she said. Jae-hwan's eyes closed. Clara sobbed. Amara began crying too, but this time from relief so deep it hurt. She is okay? Amara whispered. She is okay, the doctor said. But you need hospital monitoring tonight. Stress and impact can trigger complications. We should move you now. Jae-hwan came to Amara's side. For once, he did not look like a chairman. He looked like a man standing at the edge of losing everything. I am sorry, he said, voice broken. Amara reached for him. You asked me what I wanted. His eyes shone. And I should have told you sooner. Yes, she said, tired but honest. You should have. He bowed his head over her hand. I will spend my life doing better. She touched his face. Start tonight. No secrets. No secrets. And no revenge outside the law. His jaw tightened. She gave him a look. Jae-hwan. My anger is requesting appeal, he said quietly. Despite everything, Amara laughed weakly. Denied. He kissed her hand. Then consequences. Yes, she whispered. Consequences. The consequences came fast. By morning, Victor's face appeared in business news across 3 countries. Not the polished photos he preferred, but a blurred image from the gala, his hand raised, Amara stepping back, Kai rushing forward. Mirae Crown Holdings collapsed before noon. Investors withdrew statements of support. One local partner claimed he had been misled. Another disappeared from public contact. Singaporean regulators expanded the freeze. Korean authorities opened a formal inquiry. In New York, 2 former employees contacted Daniel Park after seeing the news and offered testimony. Then another woman came forward. Then another. Victor's empire did not explode. It rotted in public. That was worse. 3 days later, from a private hospital room with city light falling across her bed, Amara gave her formal statement. Daniel sat beside her. Jae-hwan sat behind her, silent. Not leading. Not interrupting. Not speaking for her. When the investigator asked if she was ready, Amara placed both hands over her belly and nodded. Yes, she said. I am ready. She spoke for 2 hours. Sometimes her voice shook. Sometimes she had to stop for water. Once, Jae-hwan's hand moved toward hers, then stopped halfway, waiting. She reached for him herself. When it was done, Amara felt emptied out, but not destroyed. That difference mattered. Victor was released from police questioning under restrictions while the financial investigation continued, but his lawyers moved quickly. They requested private settlement discussions, not because he was sorry, but because men like Victor only discovered regret when public loss became expensive. Amara agreed to one meeting. Not alone. Never alone. The meeting happened in a quiet legal office overlooking the river. Victor sat across the table with 2 attorneys. He looked tired, but not humbled enough. Men like him did not become humble quickly. They became cornered first. Jae-hwan sat beside Amara. Daniel sat on her other side. Clara insisted on waiting outside and threatened to enter if she heard one raised male vowel. Victor did not look at Jae-hwan. He looked at Amara. For once, she did not look away. His lawyer spoke first. My client is prepared to withdraw all Korean market activities, surrender his minority claims in Mirae Crown, sign a non-disparagement agreement, and provide written assurance that he will not contact Mrs. Min directly or indirectly. Daniel replied, "He will also provide sworn admission that his conduct at the gala endangered Mrs. Min." Victor's lawyer stiffened. "Admission of endangerment creates liability." Daniel smiled. "Yes." Victor's jaw flexed. Amara watched him battle himself. Then she said, "You want the evidence buried." Victor's eyes lifted. She continued, "That's why you're here. Not because you're sorry. Not because you understand what you did. Because you know the recordings will make people see you clearly." Victor's voice was low. "And what do you want?" Amara looked at him for a long moment. Once, she had wanted an apology. Then she had wanted him to suffer. Then she had wanted never to hear his name again. Now, sitting across from him, she realized she wanted something bigger than him. "I want the women you hurt protected from your retaliation," she said. "I want financial restitution paid into a fund for survivors who cannot afford lawyers. I want every document you forced me to sign reviewed and voided where applicable. I want your Korean project dissolved. And I want you to say, on record, that I did not lie." Victor's face hardened. "That is excessive." Amara leaned back. "Then we leave." She started to rise. Victor's lawyer grabbed his arm under the table. Jae-hwan did not move.
He did not need to.
Victor stared at Amara with pure resentment. Then, through clenched teeth, he said, "Fine." Daniel slid the document forward. Victor signed. When it came time for the recorded statement, his voice was stiff and empty. "My past conduct toward Amara Whitfield Min was harmful. Her account of coercive and threatening behavior was not fabricated. I accept responsibility for my actions at the Blue Orchid Foundation Gala." Daniel looked at Amara. She gave one small nod. Then Victor looked at her. For 1 second, the room fell away. "Are you satisfied?" he asked bitterly. Amara studied the man who once seemed too large to escape. Now he looked small. Not harmless. Never harmless. But small. "No," she said. "I'm free." She stood and left the room without waiting for him to answer.